Greetings, Felton in time and space. It's your host, Tomoya Shadow, and welcome back to the channel. Welcome back once again to some more of the great Ace Attorney Chronicles. I do apologize for not live streaming yesterday. I kind of anticipated having a beta code for the closed alpha to Warner Brothers' new platform fighter Multiverses, but unfortunately that didn't come to pass. So I honestly got too wrapped up into watching gameplay of it from other content creators, and that game does look genuinely fun. I do want to try and get my hands on it whenever it does release, and I will definitely be doing some content on that. I definitely want to main a couple of characters in there, Shaggy especially, but that's just me. Anywho, we're going to get started right away with today's adventure and see what's in store for us. Allons-y! 23rd of October, 2041 p.m. Naruto's Legal Consultancy. Oh, this room! It's been too long. It hasn't changed in the slightest, though. And it's been some 6 months, hasn't it? That's a long time for things to say so familiar. I didn't know when you might return, and I wanted everything to be as you'd left it. But it has been some 6 months, it's true. So is your father alright, Susie? What happened? My father? Yes, Professor Mikatoba. I mean, it was half a year ago, but that's why you went back to Japan. Because of the telegram you received saying he'd fallen ill with a very high fever for some unknown reason. That's right. So I was surprised to learn you'd be coming back so soon. Surprised, but happy. I think I wrote about it in my letter to you, that it was all a trick. My father is in fine health, and I'm obviously very relieved about that. Well, we're all delighted to have you back. It was quite by accident that I've been able to return to Europe, actually. It's because of a very grand conference called the International Forensic Science Symposium. The International Forensic... That's the same symposium Lord Strongheart mentioned. Anyway, I've arrived safe and sound, and all that matters is that I'm here now. After all, I haven't yet fulfilled my promise to you, Iris. Oh! You must tell us everything that happened while you were back in Japan. Yes, of course, I shall. And... there's one other thing. Something you wrote in your letter that particularly grabbed my attention. About you-know-who. About Kazuma. I know. I'll tell you all that I can. But first things first. You know, in any Ace Attorney game, you always have to make reference to the running gag. In this case, the running gag in this one is the shovel. Thinking back, that spade's been in here since we first moved in, hasn't it? I'm sure I've told you before, Mr. Naruto, it's not a spade, it's a shovel. No, shovels are for digging. That's for scooping up loose material. It's a spade. No, spades are for digging. That's for scooping up loose material. It's a shovel. The Great Spade Shovel War rages on. Ha! It'll never end! Back in Britain. When I first arrived back in Japan, I really thought I'd never be allowed to return to Britain. But curiously, after that awful trial at the Supreme Court, Father's mood changed entirely. The awful trial? Oh yes, for the murder of Giselle Brett. Ooh, you dressed as a man then, didn't you, Susie? Oh, well, yes, since women are forbidden in the courtroom. I had no choice. Wow, amazing. I wish I'd seen it. Don't you, Runo? Yes, I suppose so. I want to play at being a lawyer now. I could wear a false mustache, maybe. I don't think any mustache could hide the fact that you're just 10 years old, Iris. There's something else I've been wanting to ask you, Miss Susato. It's about the real reason why Professor Mikatoba summoned you back to Japan. You said in your letter it was something to do with that convict's loot you found in Mr. Natsume's lodgings. That's right. The very large dog collar we found with the bee emblem on it. It seems Mr. Natsume included a drawing of the collar in the report he submitted about his time in Britain. I understand that when Father saw the report, he turned as white as a sheet. Why would that be, then? Father came to Britain himself, of course, to study. It was some time ago now, but he stayed for 6 years. I can only imagine that something must have happened during that time. But if he refuses to tell me what it was, then I tend to find the answers for myself. And I've decided that I, for one, won't keep any more secrets. Oh, Susie. That's a very meaningful look Susan's giving Iris there. The Forensic Science Symposium. Lord Strongheart mentioned something about that symposium too. I think he said that investigative authorities from 40 different countries would attend. Yes, and from Japan, my father and Judge Jigoku have been invited. It's something of an honor, I believe. Well, Professor Mikotoba is the leading expert in forensic medicine in our country, after all. But who's the other person you mentioned? A judge, did you say? Yes, His Excellency, Judge Seshiro Jigoku. You've met him, Mr. Naruhodo. Last year, in the Supreme Court. You can't possibly have forgotten. That terrible trial of yours, when you were accused of murder. Ah, yes, I try to think of that as a positive turning point in my life these days. Well, it was Judge Jigoku who presided over that trial. If I'm perfectly honest, I'd be happy never to see that man's face again in my life. Oh, well anyway, as father was invited to the symposium, he agreed to be returning to Britain too. He won't actually arrive until next month, but, well, I couldn't wait. So I pleaded with him, and in the end he agreed to me going on ahead. Yes, about the symposium. It seems as though Lord Strongheart has put in an awful lot of work to make it happen. It's obviously very important. I believe it is, yes. As I understand it, Lord Strongheart organized the entire event himself. I think he's hoping that by achieving exceptional results, he'll get the job of Attorney General, the most senior position in the British justice system. He's hoping to use his power to create the world's finest policing institution. That's what Father said, anyway. Apparently, it's Lord Strongheart's lifelong ambition. Does Professor Mikotoba know Lord Strongheart personally, then, I wonder? Actually, Lord Strongheart gave me a long speech all about this very subject only yesterday, but I sort of lost the will to live early on and didn't really listen to much of it. How trying for you. Giselle Brett. Giselle Brett. The woman whose unforgivable actions ended in me being wrongly accused of a crime I didn't commit. The murder of Dr. John H. Wilson. Yes, Giselle Brett. That's a name I won't forget for as long as I live. The extraordinary thing is, though, it seems it's a name we should all forget. Sorry? Since the incident, our government's intelligence services have been investigating Miss Brett. But it turns out that an Englishwoman by the name of Giselle Brett didn't actually exist. Huh? Didn't exist? But how could that be? It was a pseudonym. Her real name was Shin, and she wasn't a visiting student either. That was a front. A front? Who on earth was she then? Miss A. Shin. Her name is literally all our intelligence services have been able to ascertain about her. Nobody knows why, or even how, she came to be in Japan. It's a complete mystery. But that makes no sense. It's no easy task to be accepted as a foreign student anywhere. What could the woman have been up to? I'm afraid I really don't know. The only thing we could be sure of is that she had some business in our country that we don't yet understand. And now she's been killed. While all the questions surrounding her existence remain unanswered. I'm afraid so. A. Shin. Who on earth was she? And why do I feel as though I've heard that name before somewhere? What about Kazuma? After my friend Ray's trial, the reporter who actually killed Miss Brett said something very strange. I know the truth. I know you had a hand in what went on in that visiting student's fate. Nobody here in Japan knows anything about it. They don't know that the guy never made it to England, that he died on that steamship, and that he'll never... Obviously, I couldn't ask him to elaborate at the time. But later, I visited a man in his prison cell and asked him what he was going to say about Kazuma-sama. And what did you learn? After he died on the voyage to Great Britain, his body should have been unladen at the port of Hong Kong and passed to the care of the consulate staff there. Should have been? Well, it turns out that his body never arrived. It just disappeared. What? Kazuma's body vanished? Our government tried to cover the fact up, it seems. They erected a grave on the cliffs by our hometown. Except Kazuma-sama isn't there. Did Professor Mikotoba know about this? Yes, it would seem that he did. But he didn't tell me. They're still investigating what happened to Kazuma-sama's body as we speak. I just don't believe it. And what is this acute feeling of apprehension I have all of a sudden? Thinking back now, some of the things that happened on the SS Buria were definitely strange. I mean, after he died, we never saw his body again, did we? Could it be? Could it be that he's actually still alive? Stop it, Mr. Naruhodo. There's too much to bear. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to. Just thinking about the possibility pains me so very much. Cast your mind back for a moment, Mr. Naruhodo. When Kazuma-sama was discovered, Mr. Sholmes was there, wasn't he? And he definitely examined the body. I remember it clearly. You're right. So if Kazuma hadn't actually been dead at all, it would mean that Mr. Sholmes had lied to us. But there's no reason why he would possibly have done such a thing. I suppose that's true, yes. The idea that he might still be alive somewhere. It wants to fill me with hope, but I can't let it, because if it turned out not to be true, then I'd be back at the bottom of that awful pit of despair again. I'm terrified of what that might do to me. Oh, Miss Susato. I know she's given the idea the thought it deserves. It's Susato's son we're talking about after all, so I probably shouldn't push it now. Hello, Iris. It must be about a year ago now. I wrote a really long story based on some of my father's old notes. It's about one of Hurley's greatest exploits. I called it The Hound of the Baskervilles. But then Mr. Sholmes forbade you from publishing it, and put the manuscript somewhere nobody could get their hands on it. So nobody knows anything about it, apart from Hurley and I. But for some reason, you knew the title of it, didn't you, Susie? Oh, it sounds so exciting. The Hound of the Baskervilles. I should love to read it. And you wouldn't tell me. How'd you come to know it? Yes, but I made you a promise that I would explain one day, didn't I? I think it's time. Oh! I'm only sorry I've had to keep it from you for so long, Iris. It was completely by accident that I came to know the title of your manuscript, Iris. It was a short while before we left Japan. I was cleaning Father's study, and I saw something on his writing desk. A large box of papers. There was a label affixed to the box that was written in English. It read, The Hound of the Baskervilles. What? My Baskervilles story? Of course, I had no idea what it was at the time. But Father came in, and... Susato, what are you doing? Oh, but Father, did you look at those papers? No, I simply read the label, that's all. Well, put it out of your mind. Sorry? Forget that you ever saw it, and certainly don't tell anybody else about this. Do you understand? But what was Iris's manuscript doing in Japan? I have no idea. But when I heard Iris mention the word Baskerville that day, the title just slipped out. I would never have guessed that it was an unpublished account of one of Mr. Sholmes' exploits. When I returned to Japan, I asked Father to explain, but he refused to answer any of my questions, and there was no sign of the big box in his office. That's really all I know about it. I no doubt that Father has a very good reason for being so secretive about it, but still, I made up my mind to explain myself to both of you. Well, thank you for being so honest, Susie. So, Mr. Naruhodo, I'm ready to start investigating if you are. I've committed every detail about the case to memory. And Iris has told me about the disturbing happenings at the Waxworks Museum as well. So, you're fully abreast of the situation already, Mrs. Stowe. I'd expected nothing less, to be honest. I would think our first port of call should be to investigate this Mr. Drebber, the engineer responsible for building the elaborate machine that was used to effect this extraordinary trick. Yes, a conjurer of sorts, by the sound of it, well known in the fields of science and magic. Then we need to go and arrest him. Well, yes. He must know the truth behind this case, so I agree we really do need to find the man. It sounds like it's a case of tracking someone down. Which is a job for the police, or a great detective. Are we supposed to guess who she might be thinking of? We don't have much time, so we need to get started straight away, I think. Good idea. Well, best of luck then. Oh, you're not coming today? I'm going to Brixton Road shortly for the herb market. But let me know later how you got on, won't you? That was a little abrupt. The pull of the herb market must be strong. Okay! Let's see here. Where are we going? Where are we going? Where are we going? Where are we going? Let's go to the prison. What? Mad scientist alert! Mad scientist alert! He's writing on the walls! 23rd of October, local prison set 11. What's he doing? Oh my! The whole wall of the cell is covered in mathematical equations. And he's still writing more now. Professor, sorry to interrupt. Oh, Mr. Naruhodo. And who is this young lady? My name is Susato Mikatoba. I'm Mr. Naruhodo's judicial assistant. It's a pleasure to meet you, Professor. Oh, if only I'd met a refined young woman like you sooner! None of this would have happened. No, that's not logical. That makes no sense at all. Oh dear, I'm sorry if my presence here upsets you. I owe you an apology too, Professor. I didn't manage to deliver what I promised you I would in court this morning. Oh no! No! The whole thing. The whole miserable affair. It all happened because I've been such a complete and utter clot! Professor Harebrain? What have you been working on in your cell? Oh, you mean that? Oh dear, how embarrassing. I was suddenly struck by an idea, you see, and I simply had to write it down. The wall was all I had to hand. Oh, is it some new hypothesis? Something surpassed super high voltage instantaneous kinesis, maybe? No, actually. This is my autobiography. What? Your autobiography? How I Was Tiddled and Fiddled by Albert Harebrain. I found I could represent my odd fortunes with only odd numbers in an ambitious set of simultaneous equations. Really? I'm going to have to pay back all the loans I took for the kinesis machine, you see. So it's going to be a new serial publication from next month. Part 1, An Odd Earth, An Odd Upbringing. You can't beat this man's optimism, that's for sure. I see. Well, for now, would you mind if we talked a little more about the case? Oh, yes, of course. I've been working through the numbers. I was diddled, I was fiddled by the pair of them, by Aspen, and by that aloof engineer, Drebber. We're not going to have to sit through an explanation of all these equations, are we? Everything I believed in has been turned on its head. My research, Mr. Aspen, the kinesis machine, my hypothesis even. I'm sorry it's come to this. There is really no other way. No, it's not your fault. I wanted to protect my work, but in the end there was nothing worth protecting. It was never my intention to deceive anyone. I didn't want to trick the public. No, of course you didn't. But in court this morning, I realized something. Oh? If you've done something wrong without knowing it, you've still done something wrong. Logically, it makes no difference if you were aware of it or not. Ignorance is a poor excuse. The blame still lies with me. Oh, Professor. He believed in me this morning, you know. Barack did. He believed in my hypothesis. Well, I think that was just a necessary factor in the prosecution establishing its case. No. Barack wouldn't do something like that. I'm sure he genuinely believed it. Did he? I think I understand now. Why it was that he decided to take on the prosecution in my trial, I mean. After the terrible accident happened, nobody would believe in my hypothesis anymore. Not the police, not the prosecution service, not any lawyers even. I feel like I dealt some kind of finishing blow there. So if any other prosecutor had taken the case, if it was anyone other than Barack, I'm sure the prosecution would have declared my hypothesis a complete and utter nonsense. And in that case, you would have been declared a fraud yourself, Professor. Exactly, which would have been a fate worse than death for me. But Barack insisted that I was a proper man of science from start to finish. You think that's why he... I know him very well indeed. He's an extremely kind-hearted soul. But that extremely kind-hearted soul spent all morning trying to paint you as a murderer, didn't he? Well, admittedly, that part of the analysis appears to have some flaws in it. And what about the whole Reaper side of things? How does that fit in with the kind-hearted soul idea? Mr. Ashman, do you think he set out to trick me from the very start? I'm sorry to say, that does seem likely, yes. When I first met him, he introduced himself as a wealthy financier. He looked over the paper I'd written and said my work would benefit all humanity and must be pursued. He was so enthused. He was so empathic. But in reality, he was the mastermind of some vast criminal network, it seems. I still can't believe it. As the machine was essentially a set decoration for some stage magic, it probably didn't require a large amount of investment, actually. But the scale of it wasn't just some small trick. It was a very elaborate feat of deception. All young scientists are full of hope about their burgeoning ideas, full of zeal. But none of us have any money. We want to do research, but we can't afford it. Many of us take on barely legal part-time work to try to earn just a few measly pennies to carry on. To go through all of that, only to be taken for a complete fool. It's too rotten to believe. It is, I agree. And that's why we have to find those responsible and bring them to justice. Mr. Asman is no more, of course, which leaves only the engineer. Mr. Enoch Drebba. Is he an engineer, or a magician, or a swindler? It was about a year ago when Mr. Asman first brought Drebba to meet me at my laboratory. Since then, I've met him many times to discuss details about the kinesis machine. But at no point did you have any inkling that he was just an illusionist? Oh, he definitely wasn't just an illusionist. What do you mean? He was a wealth of deep scientific knowledge. There's no question that the man's a genuine scientist. It's instantly apparent in conversation. I see. But the wretched man deceived you, Professor. It's unforgivable. We must do everything we can to find him and bring him to justice. Are there no more clues you could give us as to his whereabouts? I'm sorry. We only ever discussed the kinesis machine. Nothing else. Although, just once, I did visit his workshop. What workshop? Drebba's enormous fabrication laboratory, where he constructed my great machine. Why didn't you mention this before? Enoch Drebba's workshop. There's every chance we might find the man there. So you've been to Drebba's place of work, then? Yes, just once, you understand. It was an enormous place. Plenty of room to construct the kinesis machine, you see? Where can we find it? We have to go there at once. There's a good chance that we'll find rubber there. Well, yes, definitely. I'm sure you're not going to want to hear this. But I have absolutely no idea where the workshop is at all. I'm so sorry. I was more than half expecting that. You see, I was blindfolded in the carriage the entire way there. He blindfolded you? He wasn't taking any chances then. The place was incredible, the pinnacle of modern engineering. Even the oil he used was the very best, a special French machine oil that's impossible to obtain in Britain. Ah, the indescribable scent of that imported oil. Perfumers across the world should forget their secret formula and use that instead. What do you think, Mrs. Toe? Ooh, the machine for your next birthday? I never used any kind of perfume, Mr. Naruto, and not sure I'd like to start with that. I don't suppose you know even part of the workshop's address, Professor. You don't have a business card for Mr. Drebber, for example. That man was clearly very cautious, Mrs. Stowe. I'm sure he would never have... Ah! Yes, I do! He gave me his business card once. It's right here. Look. What? Let me see that! Throw etiquette to the wind, why don't you? Enoch Drebber, engineer. I'm afraid that's all it says. There's no address. No. Oh well, I can't say I'm surprised. Still, this could be useful. Drebber's card has been entered into court record. Alright, that's all we could get here, so let's move to the Lord Chief Justice's office. Oh, hello, who's that? 23rd of October, British Supreme Court, Lord Chief Justice Office. Oh, who's that standing beside Lord Strongheart? I wonder. I've never seen her before. Ah, the young champion of the court. You had some success this morning, I understand. And you've thrown the entire government into disarray as a result. Oh, you mean because of Professor Harebrain's experiment? Sham science being demonstrated at London's Great Exhibition. The country's been made to look foolish, and now politicians are scrabbling to respond. Lord Van Zeeks is in Whitehall as we speak, giving an emergency briefing. Oh dear, I didn't mean to cause any trouble. None of this is your responsibility. The government is entirely to blame for having been taken in. The special disposition that prevents investigation at the scene will be annulled later today. Once that happens, my forensic investigation team will move in and deal with that scrap metal in no time. It's scrap metal now, is it? Until later then, Lord Strongheart. Yes, thank you. Who was that? That was Dr. Courtney Seath, Scotland Yard's esteemed chief coroner. She's leading the forensic investigation team's handling of this case. She was just delivering a report about the victim, in fact. Oh, I see. About Mr. Asman. Following the outcome of the trial earlier, I asked the coroner's office to reevaluate its findings. I don't have time to tell you what she concluded. If you want to know, you'll have to ask her directly. You can find her in the forensics laboratory. Ah, right. Now, what were you here to see me about? I could give you 7 minutes and 39 seconds of my time, so he's not running quite so spectacularly late anymore. What exactly is the forensic investigation team that you mentioned before? The British Empire's police force must become the most exemplary in the world. For that to happen, it's imperative that we embrace forensic science and everything it has to offer. I first created the forensic investigation team a year ago. Now, unofficially of course, to pave the way. Goodness, a year ago? At next month's symposium, I intend to present the results of their work to the world. Once I do that, the House of Lords will be powerless to oppose the creation of a full-scaled forensics division. And once that happens, the position of Attorney General will be mine, and criminals will suffer dearly. What do you mean? For too long, those scoundrels have made a mockery of our legal system with false evidence and bribes. The London scum is about to be rounded up and burnt in the fires of hell. I intend to see to it personally. By creating the finest police force the world has ever known, to protect our honor and our future. Look at those eyes. He means every word. Dr. Seed is an extremely reliable coroner. When I officially establish the forensics division at Scotland Yard, she will run it as my right-hand woman. Now then, speaking of the Symposium, Miss Mikotoba. Oh, yes, my lord. Your father should be on the high seas as we speak, making his way here to represent the Empire of Japan. Yes, that's right. I understand he will arrive at the beginning of next month. Are you acquainted, Lord Strongheart? With Professor Mikotoba, I mean. It was many years ago now, but yes, I remember Dr. Mikotoba very well. If my memory serves, it was some 15 years ago now that your father came to Britain as a visiting student. It was the year I was born. So yes, 16 years ago, in fact. She's only 16 years old? Mikotoba was a young practitioner of forensic science, and Jigoku accompanied him as a young promising judge. The I can't say that, and politeness of the Japanese at the time impressed us greatly. Not that I wish to imply impoliteness or carelessness on your part in any way. I didn't think that you were. Dr. Mikotoba studied forensics at one of London's large hospitals, St. Sinner's, if I'm not mistaken. Dr. Seed was also there then, as it happens. Then Dr. Seed knows my father, does she? She was a young medical assistant at the time, so I doubt their paths crossed regularly. But I've no doubt that they knew each other superficially. After all, Dr. Mikotoba was here studying his subject for some 6 years in total. 6 years? That's a long time to be studying abroad, isn't it? I lived with my grandmother in those years, so he left his newly born daughter behind and went overseas for 6 whole years? It was a rather turbulent time at home. Oh, perhaps father wanted a reason to get away. What do you mean? Why? Well, clearly something was going on at the time. Lord Van Zeeks! I wanted to ask you about Lord Van Zeeks, actually. I heard that his older brother was killed some years ago by a mass murderer known as the Professor, who targeted nobles and royalty. Is that right? You Japanese are a thorough lot. You've done your research well. Yes. And you could say it was that very incident that gave rise to the Reaper. What? Why? When his brother, Clint Van Zeeks, was murdered. It was just after young Barak had graduated from the University of London and became a prosecutor, when obvious criminals who managed to evade conviction in court started disappearing. Rumors quickly spread throughout the capital. Londoners started to say that wherever Barak Van Zeeks went, the ghost of his dead brother wasn't far behind. Oh my word! So, Lord Van Zeeks isn't the Reaper. It's the ghost of his brother? Ever since that time, he became a very aloof figure in London's legal circles. Oh yes, Lord Strongheart.
Go ahead.
It's about Professor Harebrain's experimental machine. We'd like your permission to examine the remains, if possible.
Are you well versed in science, then?
Not in the slightest. In fact, you could say I was barely aware of the subject at all until recently.
Well, the special disposition legally preventing the investigation of the machine is currently being annulled. Within a few hours, Dr. C's team of forensic experts will begin their own investigation. But I suppose until then, there's no harm in you looking at the wreckage, as long as you touch nothing.
Thank you. Being able to look at it is better than nothing. And I'll be able to see it too.
Your time is up. You'll have to excuse me now, I'm afraid. My next engagement calls.
We are extremely sorry to have troubled you when you are so busy, my lord.
I have important matters to attend to in preparation for the symposium, you understand.
Okay, new location has been added. We are heading to the forensics laboratory. Nice looking office. 23rd of October, forensics laboratory. I believe this is it. Dr. Steve's laboratory. That chemical smells really assaults the nose, and there's plenty to assault the eyes in here too. Yeah. Stuffed owl, stuffed crow, skulls in bottles, bottles to skeleton, blood stains on the frickin' table. It looks as though the doctor isn't here. But we're here now, so we may as well do some sightseeing, don't you think? What a seasoned tourist you've become, Miss Susato. We could just have a little look around, being careful not to upset any restless souls. Restless souls. Okay, let's take a look-see at this book. Look at this big, thick book here. Ah, it appears to be an accounting ledger. It's a record of the forensic investigation team's spending, I think. Oh? What is it? It's clear that the team purchases various equipment and supplies on a monthly basis, but... well, one entry seems rather strange. Really? In what way? They're buying 500 scalpels every month. 500? They must be working really hard on dissecting corpses. I don't know. Judicial autopsies are only carried out in certain special circumstances. And scalpel blades can be sharpened too. It does seem a bit strange. You're right. 500 scalpels a month. What could they possibly be using all of them for? What are you doing? Ah! Ooh! Spooky. Sorry, we had something we wanted to ask you, but you weren't here, so... So you thought you'd snoop around? That's acceptable to you, paper from the East, is it? Well, what do you want? Lord Strongheart told us, you see, that it was you who examined the victim's body. Mr. Asmon's body, I mean. So we came to ask you about your findings, on Lord Strongheart's advice. Very well. If the Lord Chief Justice has given his consent, I'll tell you what our investigation revealed. But when we're done, you must leave immediately. So, you want to know what the forensic investigation team determined from its examination of the scene? The victim, Mr. Odie Asmon, who disappeared from the experimentation stage amid an explosion, and then Mr. Asmon, who appeared moments later partway up the Crystal Tower, are without question one and the same person. That is the team's conclusion. But that can't be right! If it was an elaborate trick, we can only speculate about how it was carried out. Let's see. If two people who look very similar to each other were involved, they could have made it appear as if one single person had switched places, couldn't they? Very true. But sadly, in this instance, that was not the case. The man who disappeared and the man who subsequently reappeared was the same person. The fingerprints at the scene make that quite evident. Ah, fingerprints. They're not yet officially recognized as forensic evidence in the British justice system. But one day, they will be used as an investigative aid as a matter of course. Oh my, but that would mean that the instantaneous kinesis actually took place. So, where does that leave us? Our team was tasked with investigating, not drawing conclusions. Instantaneous kinesis is impossible, and the body did move from one place to the other. This hasn't cleared anything up at all. It's made the whole thing even more of a mystery. Mama, what is this? Ah, where did she spring from? And did she just call the doctor Mama? This is a lawyer, dear. Oh. Hello. To meet you. Pleased to meet you. Yes, I'm a defense lawyer. Ryunosuke Naruto. Mama. Yes? Can I cut this one up? What? Ah!
Ah! She's got the butcher, the cleaver, and the scalpel! No!
I've never seen inside an Easter person before. I want to know what it looks like. Of course you can. It's a live specimen, as you can very well see. Boring. Twisted! I think I just had a near-death experience. Oh dear, Mr. Naruhodo, you're as pale as a corpse. Then let's leave before I'm mistaken for one. Of October, the Great Exhibition Grounds, foot of the Crystal Tower. Tony! I had no idea there were so many people in the world. I know what you mean. It's really packed here today. It feels as though it's taken us 2 hours to make our way through the crowds to this point. Has it? I shut my brain down, so I didn't really notice, to be honest. Gosh, I do wish I had your absence of mind sometimes, Mr. Naruhodo. There you are. I had a feeling you lot would show your mugs before long. Hello, Gregson. Oh, Inspector Gregson. I see you're hard at work as usual.
Warm greetings to you. I do hope you've been keeping well since last we met.
What's with all the ceremony? We just saw each other in court this morning.
Not you, Sunshine. The gentlewoman so loyally at your side.
Oh. Why, thank you, Inspector. How good of you to notice. He might be a bit rough around the edges, but he's still a proper English gentleman at heart, I suppose. As you've probably guessed, we were hoping to investigate the scene some more.
Right. Well, that's the young trainee's domain. Oi! Get over here, Gina!
She's being assaulted by the dog! The dog is giving so much love and attention! She seems to be busy playing with a puppy. Probably giving it a traditional East End training. Gina? She's a police officer now? Amazing, isn't it?
She's a good kid, actually. Heart's in the right place, anyway. She's got the detection bug, if you ask me. Yep, I think she'll follow in my footsteps nicely.
What do you mean?
I'm being transferred. It's time for me to say toodaloo to London.
Oh no, really? That's a bit sudden, isn't it? I had no idea. Where are you going to be posted then? We'll come to see how you're getting along.
Not likely, but you're welcome to try. If you don't mind a trip to France, that is.
To France?
I'll be working in the Paris Police Prefecture. Should be right up my alley.
But France? It's an entirely different country. I don't understand. Why would you be sent there?
That's the way the adult world works, Sunshine. Now don't go poking your nose in where it's not wanted. I'm intending to take the kid with me when I go.
What? You're taking Gina to Paris?
Well, I can't leave her here in London. Who knows what's become of her?
I suppose he's worried she slipped back into slipping in her hands into people's pockets and purses. I don't think he's worried about her pickpocketing, Mr. Naruhodo. I think he's worried about the Reaper. Oh, of course! So that's playing on Inspector Gregson's mind too, is it?
Anyway, I haven't mentioned any of this to Gina, so don't go blabbing, you hear me?
No, of course not.
I've got to keep that diving diva safe and sound. Until all this is over, at least.
Boy, did you just call me a bloomin' diving diva again?
So you heard that, did you? Right, well, any questions about the scene, you can put them to my capable detective diva here.
Detective diva. Alright, you heard the boss. Inspector Lestrade's in charge here now. I suppose I'd better keep my word and not mention anything about Paris. So, Gina, you've got a new dog, have you? Oh, it's so cute! Isn't he great? Toby's his name. Oh, how delightful! He's absolutely adorable! Yes, the dog does seem lovely. But it's the not-so-lovely Inspector Gregson that's playing on my mind, to be honest. Investigating the scene. Gina, we were actually hoping that we could investigate the scene again. Yeah, alright. If it's around here, you can do what you like. Oh, that's alright, is it? I'm going to be playing with my new friend here. Ah, yes, Toby. Toby! The machine that exploded must be at the top of those stairs, I presume. I haven't actually seen it yet, so if you don't mind. Sorry, you can't go up there, Suze. Oh. It's like I told Odo yesterday. You and I ain't allowed near that wreck. What's it called again? The reason we ain't supposed to touch it? The Special Dispensation for Scientific Equipment Act? Is that what you were thinking of? That's the one! That's why only them lot are allowed to investigate it. What are they called again? The Forensic something? The Forensic Investigation Team? Is that what you were thinking of? That's the one, yeah! But isn't it the case that the special disposition has been lifted? I think so. I don't really get it, to be truthful with you. You're still supposed to get permission from some bigwig or other, as far as I know. What was his name again? Lord Strange something? I'm not sure that's quite right, Gina. I think you mean Lord Strongheart, perhaps. That's the one, yeah! Apparently, he's always watching the time or something. Actually, we've just recently been to see Lord Strongheart. Eh? You what? You met him? I thought the boss was called to go and see him. He waited for 3 hours at the Cove's office and came back sniveling. Tragic. Well, Lord Strongheart has given us permission to examine the scene as long as we touch nothing. Oh yeah? Honestly. Alright then, go ahead. But if it turns out you're lying, it'll be the boss who gets it. He'll never eat another chip again in his life. So you're still saying all this is above board, are you? I'm sure everything will be fine. That really would be tragic. Alright then, them's the stairs. Off you go. Oh, thank you, Gina. It was great, wasn't it? I had a right laugh. It was a new one on me, that. You know, being in court and not spending the whole time worrying I'm about to be found out. You did keep an awful lot of secrets in all your previous court appearances, didn't you? Yeah, and Odo's made things odd for me every single time and all. Just doing my job, Gina. But watching someone else get in the neck is a lot of fun, actually. It was amazing when you showed that dodgy professor's dodgy experiment was a total fix. The dodgy professor, as you put it, Gina, is Mr. Naruhodo's client. Yes, I'm starting to wish he wasn't, though. It's the boss I feel sorry for, sent off to do the impossible. What do you mean? He's supposed to arrest that other cove, ain't he? And in time for tomorrow and all. You know, the dodgy engineer. What's his name again? Mr. Drebber, you mean? Enoch Drebber. That's the one, yeah. So the police are looking for this mysterious man with the black monocle. I guess they would be. He's putting too much on the boss, if you ask me. He says it's giving him a gut ache. Oh dear. But I do wonder if that isn't actually from all the fried food. So Scotland Yard are trying to track down Mr. Enoch Drebber. I wonder if they've had any luck. He's really funny looking. Got 2 eyes what don't match. Stole a glimpse of a picture of him earlier. I mean, I didn't actually pinch it or nothing. The old devil's got it. Sorry? Who? You know, that Scowling Reaper was always glugging down glasses of that blood-red plunk. Ah, Lord Van Seeks. He's always had it in for me, that cove. Don't know what he's always scowling about mine. Probably would have been a pretty good boss as it goes. He'd rather be the first apprentice than a detective's trainee? The way I see it, if the choice is between a chip-guzzling detective and a chalice-glugging demigod, you're equally badly off with both. I suppose you're right. I hadn't thought of it like that. Glad we put that one to bed. Anyway, the point is, everyone at the yard's dead set on finding the fishy engineer. But there don't seem to be no clues to go on, so they're stuck. There's nothing that can lead us to Drebber at all? Doggy! Where did you find that little mutt then, Gina? Oi! Don't be so flaming rude, Odo! slight overreaction, don't you think?
Ain't no mud, alright? Toby's... How did they put it? Oh yeah, a bona fide detective. Sorry? I've given him a proper title and everything. It's Chief Inspector Toby to you.
More senior than Inspector Gregson, is he?
Ooh, so he's a police dog, is he?
The police recruit dogs now? I've heard that they're already being used officially in Germany as part of their city policing. They're used for chasing criminals and such like. They have a wonderful sense of smell, after all. I have a fairly good sense of smell myself, as it happens. I can tell undergarments that have been freshly laundered from undergarments that haven't. That's nothing compared to this little fella, Odo.
Oh, really?
According to what the boss said, once Toby here's got a good whiff of your drawers, he could chase that scent to the other side of the world.
What? To the other side of the world?
You mean
he could swim?
Mr. Naruhodo, I think you may have missed the point by rather a wide margin. I just can't believe this little dog has such an incredible skill. I'm telling you, Odo, there's got to be more and more dogs doing their bit for the police in the future. Yes, I agree, right? One of these days they'll be barking orders at us lot, not the other way around.
Oh dear.
Sorry, Gina, I don't think I agree with your vision quite that much. Well, anyway, whatever you think about that, Toby here is Britain's first police dog. I found him down the East End the other day. Someone had just chunked him out on the street.
There you go. I knew she'd lifted him from somewhere.
Oh, Gina, you're such a kind-hearted soul, aren't you? To children and to animals.
Alright, that's all we can say to Gina, so let us go up these stairs.
These stairs lead up to the experimentation stage. Let's go and see what we can find out. Oh my! So this is the machine that was used to deceive people into thinking instantaneous kinesis had taken place. Yes, that's right. Or rather, it was the machine. It's little worse for wear at the moment. What extraordinary lengths Professor Harebrain went to in order to obtain the research grant. No, the professor was tricked as well. He didn't know anything about it. Yes, of course. It is amazing, though, isn't it? The scale of the whole affair is so very British. You're right about that. You never see such a grand deception in Japan, that's for sure. Oh, look, is that...
Lord Van Zeeks?
So, I think we're more or less done here, aren't we?
Shall we, Mrs. Stowe? Already?
He is the Reaper, remember? We do well to keep our distance, I think.
But we have permission to be here, from the top.
We're perfectly well allowed to investigate this machine, as long as we don't touch anything.
From the top?
Do you mean Lord Strongheart?
Exactly.
So we could stay here and stare at this wreckage for as long as we like. She could have been at the center of the explosion here, and it wouldn't have bent her steel wheel.
Wait a minute.
Let me take a look and see at this card.
Oh, hello. An oil stain.
There's dark smudge here. I think perhaps it's machine oil. Ah, yes, possibly. Professor Harebrain mentioned something about the oil Mr. Drebber uses, didn't he? He said it was specially imported, very high-quality oil that's impossible to obtain in Britain.
Yes, that's right, but more importantly,
it's more fragrant than the finest perfumes, so excuse me a moment. Oh, it doesn't appear to have any scent at all. Don't worry. I expect that's just because there's such a tiny amount on it.
On here. Wait! If it's fragrant... backtrack!
Backtrack.
Have the dog smell the card.
About this, Gina. Yeah, I'm still learning me letters at the moment. I only know A to E, so it ain't too much bleeding trouble. Ah, actually, Gina, it's the back of the card that's important. Eh? How come? There's just a dirty old smudge on the back, that's all. It turns out that this is a very high-quality French machine oil. It has a very particular scent, apparently. You don't say! Let's have a whiff, then. You sure? I don't smell nothing. No, we didn't mean that you should smell it. Oh, right! You mean Toby! The sense of smell is so good, he can track people over the oceans, can't he? Professor Hairbrain informs us that this oil is unique to Mr. Drebber's workshop. Doggo power! I think he's picked up a scent. So you mean, if he follows the scent of this oil, Toby could lead us to that dodgy cove's workshop? That's right. That's exactly what we were hoping. Alright then, we'll give it a go. I'll just borrow that. Wait, when did you... Once a pickpocket. If I could lead everyone to that Drebber's workshop, I'll be the boss's boss before next week. Oh yes, Gina. I'm sure you'll be promoted. Poor Gregson. Alright then, Odo. Leave it to me. Sorry. We're gonna get going after that dodgy engineer cove right this minute. Oh, but hang on. Someone's supposed to be on guard duty here all the time. I'm afraid we can't help. We need to get on with our investigation as well, Gina. Oh, right. Oh well, never mind. It ain't gonna be me what gets it in the neck. It'll be the boss. Poor Gregson again! Ready, Toby? Got that oil scent, have you? Come on then, boy. See you later. You're such a good boy! I do hope the scent of that oil leads them to that swindler's workshop. Yes, I hope so too. Ideally before the dog swims across the channel to France. Now we go up the stairs. Alright, let's see here. What to examine first? Let's take a look-see at the birdcage. This wasn't here yesterday. Really? But if I'm not mistaken, it's the cage in which the victim was standing before he was apparently beamed through the air. That's right, the birdcage. According to what Professor Hairbrain said in court, it's made of wood. Or more precisely, Japanese cypress, I think. And despite having been in an explosion and then fallen from great height, it's relatively unharmed. What wonderfully durable construction, wouldn't you say, Mr. Naruhodo? I'd understand that the forensic investigation team had taken it away yesterday to examine it. I suppose they must have brought it back here when they finished their work. But sadly, not with the body inside it. No, that's right. I know we were given strict instructions not to touch anything, but still, this is too important a piece of evidence to overlook. We might need it for the trial. Examine the machine. Examine the machine. What a terrible explosion it must have been. Even the steel girders have buckled and twisted in the blast. And what they call the birdcage was right in the middle of it all, just here. But look, Mr. Naruhodo, that metal grill on the floor. It looks as though it's designed to open. It does, doesn't it? The floor had opened at the precise moment the explosion occurred. The birdcage could have dropped through and disappeared from sight. I don't think there's any doubt that this was a very elaborate hoax, is there? Yes, we see you, Lord Van Zeeks. Least approachable man in the world winner, 10 years in a row. Be strong, Mr. Naruhodo. Your country and your sister stand firm behind you. Lord Van Zeeks? What? Well, beautiful weather we're having, isn't it? I thought I was making it quite clear that I didn't want to be disturbed. Apparently, you Nipponese are unequipped to read the signs. Oh, I read them. So, what are you doing here? Entry to this area is prohibited. Well, the thing is, Lord Chief Justice Strongheart granted us permission to investigate, on condition that we didn't disturb anything. And yet you've managed to disturb me. Ah! Never mind. State your business, then. Come to think of it, there are quite a few things I'd like to ask Lord Van Zeeks about. Not least of which is that awful case, even though it's nothing to do with this. Ask away, Mr. Naruhodo. You won't know unless you try. Boom! Big one right off the bat. So, Clint. What's the name of your older brother, I understand, Lord Van Zeeks? You Nipponese. Always have to be on guard whenever you're around. So, you've been investigating me, have you? Oh, no, it's not like that. Well, alright, it is a bit like that. My older brother was also a prosecutor. He was the pride of the Van Zeeks family. But tragically, a vicious killer took him from us. The professor, you mean? Is something funny? That's the extent of what you've discovered, is it? I shouldn't be surprised. Sorry? There's more to it, then. Lackluster work is very much your trademark, isn't it? Ugh, you're too kind. Are you going to tar all Nipponese with the same brush next? So tell me, what's your interest in that historic incident? As it happens, Lord Van Zeeks, there's a rather curious case that's come to our attention. Are you aware of the Madame Tuspel's Museum of Waxworks by any chance? I am, naturally. I believe that since last month, I feature in one of the displays there, for public scorn. Of course, the infamous Reaper of the Bailey would have to be exhibited, wouldn't he? Well, a particular waxwork has been stolen from the place, and held for ransom. A particular waxwork, which... Wait, you mean... Yes, it's the professor. Mr. Sholmes is investigating the case as we speak. I was unaware of that. He's turned as white as a sheet. Are the police trying to locate the engineer, Mr. Drebber, already? Surely that goes without saying. We're very keen to see him found as well. The trouble is, we don't have much to go on aside from the description of the man we heard in court earlier. Which, according to Professor Hairbrain, was of a tall, thin gentleman who has straight white hair and wears a black monocle. So, I was just wondering. I mean, I realize it's probably not possible, but, we'd very much appreciate any more clues you can give us. Wow, Susanoo-san really knows how to take the bull by the horns. Fine. Why not? I have a photograph of the man here from an investigation 10 years ago. Though it appears he already had that black monocle at the time. What? Oh, no, nothing. I was just surprised that you shared that with us. We all need the man's testimony in court tomorrow, which means we have to do everything we possibly can to track him down in the short time available. So why wouldn't I show you the photograph? What is it about Lord Van Zeeks? Sometimes I just can't work him out at all. Ah, the file I requested for the trial tomorrow. Thank you. Are you alright? Who is this man, Mr. Naruhodo? Lord Van Zeek's apprentice, apparently. So I'm not the only one. Susanoo-san can see it too. Lord Van Zeeks, may we speak with your apprentice for a moment? With him? Why? Kazuma-sama! Kazuma? I don't believe it! Your posture, your presence, it could only be... It's you, isn't it, Kazuma-sama? I felt something strange the very first time I encountered this cloaked figure, as if I knew him somehow. Can it really be you, Kazuma? Wait! Too late. What's going on here? What is your interest in my apprentice exactly? You act as if you know the man or something. Well, Sim, when has he been in your care? I don't recall you having an apprentice before I left Britain 6 months ago. Lord Strongheart introduced him to me about 3 months ago now, with instructions to mentor him as a prosecutor. But he didn't tell you why, did he? The man appears to be suffering from amnesia. So it is Kazuma! He's forgotten every last detail about himself. He has amnesia? Tomorrow he will appear in court at my side. What? He's to serve as my judicial assistant, on Lord Strongheart's orders. He'll be in court with us? Now then, unless I'm much mistaken, I believe this conversation has run its course. Oh, yes, thank you. I definitely saw a reaction there. When Susuto-san called out like that, it really seemed to hit a nerve. When she called out Kazuma-sama. You'd already met that masked man, hadn't you, Mr. Naruto? Yes, yesterday, in fact, at Lord Van Zeek's office. I see. And if Kazuma-sama really is still alive, it means that Mr. Sholmes lied to us. I know. We're going to need to speak to him about that. You're going to have to leave now. The forensic investigation team are due to arrive shortly. If they find you here, it will cause problems. What sort of problems? Foreign affairs problems. Well, we could do without that. Alright, we'll be on our way. Let's go, Miss Susuto. Of course. Well, I think we've done all the investigating we can here for now. If we could just determine the whereabouts of Mr. Drebber. I'm sure Gina and little Toby won't let us down. Now then, do you think we ought to try to speak with Mr. Sholmes at this point? We have things to discuss, and I'm dying to meet him again after all these months. Yes, it's quite possible he might know something useful, you're right. You have to find him at Madame Tuspel's. He's supposed to be working there as a temporary waxwork exhibit. Yes, Iris told me all about his latest unusual venture. October, Madame Tuspel's Museum of Waxworks. Oh my! No wonder it's called the House of Horrors. I'd like to turn on my heels and go straight home, via the confectionery. Being scared makes you crave sweets? I can understand that. But you know, there's something about that waxwork over there. Ah! It looks exactly like Mr. Sholmes down to the very last detail. Aha! What is it? Oh, sorry. I think you'll find that's the temporary waxwork himself. Ah, the friend of my dedicated employee. Oh yes, hello again. It's Ryunosuke Naruhodo. I must say, I am quite spellbound by the great detective. He is a marvel. My precious waxwork is already back where it belongs. You don't mean... But yes, the mystery is solved already. Wow, Mr. Sholmes can really engage his brain when he's hungry enough. So as you can see, he has returned to his habitual duties. Yes. His habitual duties? Hello. Do not disturb, eh? Poor sister-san. She looks very perplexed. Alrighty. Let's see here. Let's examine some stuff. Oh no! I just realized there's a ladder here. Are we going to get the first step ladder incident debate right here? Ah, there's a step ladder there. Yep! Look. Oh, yes. A step ladder. I think perhaps we should let the proprietress know that someone's left it out. A step ladder, I mean. Is something wrong? Why do I feel as though I just managed to sidestep an argument? Ooh! Okay. We really do need to speak with Mr. Sholmes, and I am longing to say hello again. But where is he? I think you might find that he's quite nearby, actually. Oh! What do you... Indeed, my dear fellows, it is I! The world-famous great detective in waxwork, Sherlock Sholmes. She passed out! Susan-san! Susan-san! Oh. My most humble apologies. I thought I died and gone to eternal paradise for a moment via London. My dear madam, allow me to make amends by offering you a tasty free deduction at some point, as long as it's not of questionable street food quality. I don't understand. Why are you working as a waxwork here, Mr. Sholmes? Merely a secret identity, you understand, though the case is largely solved now. Largely solved? We're talking about the waxwork abduction, I presume. Indeed we are, my good fellow. As I predicted, it was as easy as proverbial pie. Though I confess, I'm yet to partake of a pie, proverbial or otherwise, or any food so far today for that matter. That stomach rumble echoed around the whole museum. So how did you manage to solve it so quickly? Ah, well, do you remember I said it was largely solved? Anyway, I simply negotiated with the culprit. Are you familiar with the so-called telephone? Oh yes, it's a most modern invention, allowing you to hold a conversation with people far away. In Japan, only the imperial capital and a handful of other cities are connected as yet. This morning, a telephone call was received here from the perpetrator of the abduction. As such, I was able to negotiate terms, and in the end, the waxwork was returned. That's amazing! Just between you and I, it would appear the culprit had always intended to return the stolen waxwork in any event. Oh, but I thought whoever was responsible had demanded a ransom, no? Yes, I think perhaps the ransom demand was necessary to avoid unwanted suspicion regarding the true motive. But does that not mean your negotiating was entirely unnecessary? A fact that I must ask you to keep from Madame Tuspel's at all costs. A hungry young Iris awaits my return to Baker Street, after all. Poor Iris. Now then, do I sense that you have some business with this great waxwork? We're in the process of trying to track somebody down.
Oh?
Yes, a man by the name of Enoch Drebber. He's the swindler who duped Professor Harebrain and the engineer who built the kinesis machine.
A swindler and an engineer?
Quite the modern man. He also seems to be a conjurer of sorts, too, with considerable knowledge of stage magic. We really need to locate him before the trial resumes tomorrow morning. We have so few clues to go on. That's the trouble. Do you have any good ideas?
I have no data yet. It is a capital mistake to have good ideas before one has data. If I knew something of the man's appearance, at least, I may be in a better position to help.
Yes, Drebber's appearance.
Fortunately for you, however, presently I have little to occupy myself and little to fill my stomach. As soon as you find any clue, no matter how small, I should gladly give you my thoughts on it.
Mr. Sholmes, did you lie to us?
My dear Mr. Naruhodo, stay that pissing stare. What is this about?
Last winter, when we were first on our way to Britain aboard the steamship. Your words were very clear.
So then, let us unravel this mystery and discover what events led to this curious murder.
You told us that it was murder, and you examined Kazuma-sama's body.
Indeed, and wherein lies the problem?
We met him earlier today, the victim, Kazuma Asogi.
You're quite sure?
He was wearing some sort of mask and was apparently suffering from amnesia. But yes, I'm quite sure. It was Kazuma-sama. You must have known at the time, Mr. Sholmes, that he wasn't actually dead.
Well, I can only assume I was swept up in the murderous atmosphere of the moment. But the fellow wasn't dead at all. Priceless! I don't suppose that performance would pass muster, would it, Mr. Naruhodo?
I can believe that the crewmen present at the time made a mistake, but not you, Mr. Sholmes.
I will now tell you something of the first importance, my dear fellow. Great detectives are wont to lie. It will serve you well to remember that. Please, Mr. Sholmes. Tomorrow in court, you will find yourself on the threshold of a very great mystery. But now, I'm afraid that is all I can say.
Mr. Sholmes, would you cast your eyes over this photographic print? It's of Mr. Enoch Drebber, the face of the engineer we seek.
Well, all Englishmen look broadly the same, of course, so looking at the photograph won't
be particularly instructive.
Are you all right, Mr. Sholmes?
Ah, yes, forgive me. Very interesting, this. Very interesting indeed. What's wrong, Mr. Sholmes? You've turned quite pale all of a sudden.
I have a suggestion, Mr. Naruhodo. Will you indulge me?
Oh, well, what is it?
As I explained to you when you arrived, the missing waxwork has been returned, and I personally reinstalled it in the exhibit from which it was taken, behind those thick curtains.
Oh yes, the professor exhibit, isn't it?
Would you like to see it? For a mere 5 shillings. That's a special, one-time only price, you understand.
What?
The opportunity won't come again, I might add. Wouldn't you like to see the fruits of my labor?
Oh, well, we do have a rather pressing investigation to carry out. Perhaps we could postpone?
The price is a very reasonable 5 shillings. I think you'll find this well worth it.
Are you being quite serious, Mr. Sholmes? Surely you need only look at my expression to ascertain if this is seriousness or silliness.
I can never tell with you, that's the point.
Very well, it couldn't hurt. Here's your 5 shillings.
Gratefully received. So, the special exhibit awaits behind the curtain. I invite you to peruse it at your leisure.
Well, the money's been spent, so let's go and see the special exhibit. Through those heavy curtains at last. $5 we've had to pay. It doesn't seem right somehow that Mr. Sholmes slipped the money into his own pocket, does it? No. Ah, we could ask Gina to retrieve it for us, using her special skills. Pickpocketing police officers and diddling detectives. Is this what makes Britain great? Not to mention demigod prosecutors taking the law into their own hands or chip-loving inspectors. Inspector Gregson comes off rather well in that list, I think. October, Madame Tuspel's special exhibit. Where's his head? Oh dear. I felt a shiver run down my spine as soon as we walked in here. Miss Susato, I say we turn on our heels and go straight home. Buy a really big confectionery. We certainly can't do that. We've paid $5 already. True. Actually, now I'm looking at it a little more closely. We paid good money to see an exhibit that's clearly incomplete. Never that the great diddling detective is far more terrifying than anything else in this place. This must be what Mr. Sholmes meant when he said this case was largely solved. Be that as it may, Mr. Sholmes heavily implied there'd be a clue about the engineer in here, didn't he? But where? Since we paid $5, let's do $5 worth of investigation, shall we? Yes, we will get what we paid for. Is that fear or frustration? Let's make Susato-san's voice tremble. This part of the exhibit is just as disturbing as the rest. It looks so real. It seems to be a young man in a white overcoat. And he has a large shovel in his hand, too. Look. Perhaps we should investigate in a little more detail. What's this here? Well, this would appear to be a lens in the middle, so I believe it's probably a camera. A camera? But it's so small. British technology is incredible, isn't it? I mean, what about Mr. Sholmes' skin prints? I think perhaps we should treat Mr. Sholmes' inventions as exceptions to the rule. But anyway, why would the man be in a graveyard at night with a camera? I wonder. Perhaps he was trying to capture the moment a dead body came back as a ghost on film. We'll just borrow this for a little while, I think. By looking at the photographic plate inside the camera, we can see what picture was taken. What's a photographic plate? It's a piece of glass coated in a special emulsion that reacts to the light coming in through the lens. If we open the cover at the back of the camera, we should find it. Let's have a look. You should see yourself, Susato-san. Your eyes are shining. You really do like machinery, don't you? I can't see his face very well, can you? Perhaps if I just... Oh, do you think you should be manhandling the exhibits, Mr. Nara? I'll put it back exactly as it was, don't worry. Ah! What on earth? How can... I don't believe it! A black monocle! Mr. Naruhodo, is it possible that this man is... Yes. It's Enoch Drebber! The color of his hair is different, but it's unmistakably him! Indeed it is. Mr. Sholmes! This man is the subject of your present hunt, I believe. Yes, that's right. Just who is this man? Why is he here in this exhibit? And why does the convict behind him have no head? The head was missing when the model was returned by the thief who stole it. What a surprise! So then the case isn't yet solved, is it? Did I not say so myself? Largely solved were my words, I believe. But I must locate the missing head, tout de suite, as Madame would say, or I'll be in grave trouble. A very hungry Iris still awaits my return to Baker Street, preferably with rations. Ah! Do you know, though, something about this room is strange. Strange? What do you mean? Well, the displays in the House of Horrors are supposed to depict real events, are they not? Indeed they are, Miss Susato. Do go on. And as terrifying as they are, the scenes in the other exhibits are believable. But this one... This surely couldn't never really have happened, could it? I think it's time I educated you a little about the nature of the incidents involving the professor 10 years ago. Hold it. I want to take a look-see at this shovel. What a large shovel. He's holding it rather ominously, isn't he? What on earth was the man doing with a shovel in a graveyard in the middle of the night? Mrs. Tote? Yes? That's a spade, isn't it? Oh, no. Not again. No, it's a shovel. No, shovels are for digging. That's for scooping up loose material. It's a spade. We've been through this, Mr. Naruhodo. It's a shovel. No. Although, we haven't considered trowels. We've allowed ourselves to be distracted, I feel. Perhaps we should concentrate on what the man was doing with the implement. So we're going to bury the hatchet? You're right, though. What's the man doing in the graveyard in the first place? That's the real question. Oh, bother! Let's take a look-see at this camera. What's inside the camera? Oh, look! The cover came open. Yes, now, there should be a glass plate inside. You have to change the plate with each new photograph you want to take, you see. Is something wrong? There is no plate. It's been removed. Huh, what a pity. But I suppose if you think about it, this wouldn't be the actual camera that was used at the time, just like the waxwork isn't the actual person. So we never have found a photograph or print of the executed convict coming back to life anyway. Oh, yes, you're quite right, of course. Poor Susuo-san, she looks devastated. One more thing that needs to be checked, and that's the professor itself. This must be the killer, the fiend known as the professor. Yes, I think so. According to what Madame Tispel said, he killed 5 victims, all of noble or royal blood. The waxwork is so lifelike, isn't it? Like all the models in this place. I know, it looks like it could start moving at any moment, doesn't it? If only it had a head, that is. Perhaps we should examine it in a little more detail. So this is the condemned man. Yes, the so-called professor. Then perhaps his head was chopped off by a guillotine. But unable to find peace, he emerged from his grave as a headless ghost. Do we have to entertain such terrifying ideas, Mrs. Stowe? Anyway, I'm sure the model had a head once. There's a metal fitting for it, see? Then perhaps Mr. Sholmes absent-mindedly forgot to reattach it? That's an extremely absent-minded detective you're describing, isn't it? Or perhaps the thief absent-mindedly forgot to include the head when he or she returned it to the museum, and that would be the extremely absent-minded thief. Could there have been some reason why only the head wasn't returned? Well, whatever the reason, it means we don't know what the face of the infamous professor looked like, do we? Oh. There's something caught just inside the convict's jacket here. Looks like a piece of broken glass, and quite a big piece, too. It's very thick, isn't it? About 5 times thicker than normal window glazing, I'd say. Where could such a thick piece of glass have come from, I wonder? I suppose it must have been made thick to increase its strength. But why? Well, perhaps because the glass had to span a particularly wide area, such as in a big building, for example. Ah, well, we've seen a large glass building recently, haven't we? And some of the glass was broken, too. You don't mean... Exactly. The Crystal Tower at the Great Exhibition. But why would glass to the Crystal Tower be lodged inside this waxworks jacket? It makes you think, doesn't it? The piece of broken glass has been entered in the court record. Earlier in court, we established that the kinesis experiment was a trick, and now we discovered this fragment of glass here in this waxwork. Is it just a coincidence? Okay, we're going to end the live stream here for today, and we shall finish up the rest of the part 2 investigation on Monday. So, thank you all for watching. If you enjoyed the live stream, please leave a like. Don't forget to subscribe. Don't forget to check out Mother Roy's DNR page or click a link in the description below to achieve your dream, being my cock, but leave a 2. You won't be disappointed. And of course, forget to click that little bell button if you wish to be notified whenever I upload a video or live stream to my channel. And most importantly, if you wish to see the other stuff done, you can do so. Check out my playlist section. All my videos are there archived for your viewing entertainment, so you can watch the first half of the Great Ace Attorney Chronicles, Sword Art Online Fatal Bullet, God of War, and many, many more. We are at 187 subscribers. Let's try and push ourselves to 200 subscribers before the end of May. So, thank you all for watching. As always, your host, Team Shadows, and Long Z, and I'll see you for the next adventure. Goodbye, everyone!